What's going on, y'all? Today we're going to talk about the Long Beach Marathon 2025, and I'm going to talk about my experiences as well as why/how I failed my goal of sub 4 hours. All right, so for those of you guys who are watching who are maybe curious about my performance, maybe if you've seen my other videos or you're a fan of the channel, or whether you're just looking to run the Long Beach Marathon in the future, maybe 2026, this video I hope is going to be a little bit entertaining, a little bit informative on how the course kind of is, as well as my pacing strategy, what I did wrong and whatnot. To be honest, I don't really know what I did wrong, so I would also love your guys' help in the comment section down below if you guys have any tips or tricks for me. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started with my experience in the 2025 Long Beach Marathon. Actually, I'm going to take this off first. It's pretty heavy. All right, so to start things off, this is my first year running the Long Beach Marathon. I kind of picked it because I thought it was a great time of the year. I thought it was going to be a little bit colder, as well as I saw the kind of net elevation of the course, and it wasn't too bad. I mean, it still had some elevation on the course, but to put things in perspective, I've ran the OC Marathon, which is probably around the same net elevation as Long Beach, maybe a little bit less than Long Beach. And then I ran the LA Marathon as well as the SF Marathon. Both of those marathons, I would say, are a lot harder of courses than the Long Beach and the OC Marathon. If I were to compare kind of all the courses that I've ran personally against each other, I would say maybe the OC Marathon is probably the quote unquote easiest marathon route. I mean, no marathon is easy, but if I were to try to PR again, I think that's the course that I would choose out of those four courses. Long Beach, I would say, is maybe the second easiest course, but yeah, that's kind of why I chose the Long Beach Marathon, as well as I was really excited and it trained probably the hardest I've ever trained for any marathon. My previous marathons, I actually didn't do a formal training plan or anything. I was just kind of running and vibing, trying to do one long run a week and stuff. But for this specific marathon, since I was trying to break sub 4 hours and I've never really officially trained for a marathon before, I wanted to give it my best effort. I trained for about 4 to 5 months, was consistently putting in long runs, a little bit of speed work, easy runs. The weekly mileage got up to 51 miles. And I would say majority of the weeks I was hovering between 30 to 40 miles per week, which I thought was heavily sufficient for my goal, as well as my marathon pace goal was around like 8:45 to 8:50 minutes per mile, which I think for me is a very comfortable pace and a very realistic pace to hit. To put things in perspective, also my PR for the mile is 6:01. Obviously, that's a mile. Like, who cares about that? 5K is around maybe like 21 minutes. I can do like maybe sub 7 or around 7 minutes flat. That's kind of an unofficial 5K. 10K probably around like 7:30 to 8 minutes per mile. And then half marathon, I actually ran a PR in this training block. I ran a 1:49, which I believe is like an 8:21 minute per mile. I just wanted to kind of test myself in a longer run, as well as just see how fast I could like run and how the paces felt. And honestly, 8:21 felt pretty comfortable, pretty chill. So I thought that 8:45 to 8:50 minutes per mile for a marathon was definitely doable. So that's kind of to give you guys a little bit of background on how I trained and like just how I prepared for this race. And I mean, spoiler alert, I was very bummed that I wasn't able to hit my sub 4 hour goal. But yeah, let's talk about the race. So basically, starting from the very beginning, corrals. If you guys are curious about the corrals of the Long Beach Marathon, I believe there's like maybe 3 or 4 corrals. They are pretty like big corrals in the sense of there's a lot of people in each corral, and it's not super official. You kind of input your estimated time. Like, for example, I put 3:45, 3:50, I think, for my estimated time, and they recommended, I believe, like corral B or corral C, but there was no one really checking at the start line to see if you were in the correct corral. So I believe I started in the corral B because it was 3:45 to 4:15. That was kind of the window of corral B. And I believe corral C was like a really big corral, which had the range of 4:15 to like 5 something. Not exactly too sure. I kind of just went straight to B because that was kind of where my goals were. So yeah, if you're worried about the corrals and whatnot, I would say, try to get there a little bit early, obviously, try to go to the restroom and whatnot. I personally went to the restroom like 3 times before the race even started, and then I went like 4 times throughout the race. So, I mean, maybe I'm not the best person to ask, or I don't know what's wrong with my body, but that's kind of my experience. So yeah, try to get to the corral as early as you can. Obviously, it gets more crowded as the kind of start comes. The race starts at 5:30. I believe that they let the wheelchair athletes go first, and then they, I think, let Corral A or the elite athletes. I forgot if they're separate, but I think Corral B started around like 10 minutes after. So it started around 5:40, and then we were off. Starts kind of like on this highway area in Long Beach, and yeah, the first couple miles of the course was pretty chill. I will say with Long Beach Marathon, just overall as a whole, there is a lot of kind of U-turns. So if you're not a huge fan of U-turns, or maybe you're a lot faster than I am, or you're worried about the course, how easy it is to navigate and stuff, I will say that there are a lot of U-turns. I think mentally it's also a little bit like, oh man, I'm seeing someone like 5 miles ahead of me going the other way, and then on the way, like when you finally get there, you're also seeing people that are kind of behind you and stuff. So I don't know, mentally I was just like, oh man, like I got a lot a lot more to go, and you're kind of seeing the same scenery again, when you're turning back. So that's something to keep in mind. It's not a huge deal for me, honestly, but just something that I noted, especially compared to some of the other marathons that I ran. So if that's important to you, then keep that in mind. I would say that the weather was good. It was like perfect basically. I thought, like this is the perfect time to, PR. So for context also, my PR for the marathon was 4:08, my first marathon, OC marathon. So I was trying to break 4 hours. I mean, I was kind of like pacing in the beginning of the marathon for maybe a 3:50, so that there's a little leeway if I cramped or if I needed to walk a little bit, I would still maybe come under that 4 hours. And I was on pace for, I would say, the first like 18, 19 miles. I was struggling a little bit. So basically, to backtrack, I ran the first 6 miles pretty chill. Maybe a little bit hot or a little bit fast, but I was trying to build up like some time so that I would have extra time later in the race just in case I blew up. As well as I had to go pee. I just peed kind of on the side, or I obviously like covered a little bit, but I didn't wait for the porta potties or anything. Porta potties on the races weren't too busy or anything. So if you're used to kind of bigger races or bigger marathons, like maybe the SF marathon or the LA marathon, it's definitely not like that where you'll have to wait for the porta potty for a whole lot of time, which is really nice, which is kind of why I like a little bit smaller marathons, kind of like the Long Beach or OC. I believe Long Beach had around 5,000 marathon runners, so it wasn't anything too crazy, and I really like that you didn't really have to wait for the porta potties if you really need to go to the restroom. So that's something to keep in mind. But overall, the beginning of the Long Beach Marathon, I would say for the first 6 miles, there's like a little bit of uphill, a little bit of downhill, but nothing too crazy. Obviously, you're super fresh. So I took it upon myself to kind of run a little bit faster. Let me pull out my splits. So yeah, I ran 8:52 the first mile, 8:57 second mile, 8:57 third mile, 8:38 the fourth mile, 8:12 the fifth mile, sixth mile was 8:29, seventh mile was 8:34. So at this point of the race, I was feeling like, obviously pretty good. Was doing a lot of long runs in my training. I think that's my biggest weakness, or that was the biggest weakness I assessed for myself before this marathon. But now I'm thinking more it's like weight training and stuff, which I didn't really incorporate this training cycle. So yeah, ran 8:34 for the seventh mile, but that's when I kind of knew that this race may not go well, is because I typically deal with a lot of cramps, like on longer runs, maybe at like mile 17, 18, 19, around like where most people hit the wall. But I started cramping at mile 7, and that's when I kind of was like, yo, what is going on? And I also cramped in my calf, which is not typically normal for me. I usually cramp in like my hamstrings or my quads. So I was kind of already worried about that. Like it was maybe to the point where I knew I could still run, but like I was like, oh, this is not a good sign, especially so early in the race, as well as the sun wasn't even fully out yet. Like I said, we start at 5:40 a.m. and then probably around like 7-ish a.m. I started cramping a little bit in my calf, and I was like, okay, like I stopped to the side a little bit to stretch a little bit. I knew I had some time that I built up because I was running a little faster than marathon pace. So I knew, okay, like I can stretch this out, and maybe hopefully I won't hit the wall, or hopefully I won't cramp anymore after this little thing. But I was totally wrong. That was like wishful thinking. Obviously, I was trying to like be delusional. Basically, like the cramps kept coming back either in the calf, hamstring, or quads, and basically it came on and off between mile 7 to like mile 20. And it was really, really painful to kind of run through it and like stop to the side, stretch, and then kind of like run a little bit faster to make up for that time that I stopped. As well as I kind of went to the bathroom here and there like throughout that whole time, and I was drinking as much water. I had salt tabs, I had 6 gels. So I was like pretty like had my bases covered when it came to resources and kind of fueling and nutrition and stuff, just from like the information that I've personally seen on, social media, YouTube and stuff. Like I was trying to follow everything to a T so that hopefully, I would get a good result, but unfortunately it didn't end up that way. So from mile 7, keep in mind I was cramping on and off, I was going to the bathroom and stuff, so I was actually running faster than a lot of these paces because like I was trying to make up for that time that I stopped. So ran 8:48 for the 8th mile, 8:58 for the 9th mile, 8:50 for the 10th, 9:11. So the first mile that was over marathon pace was mile 11 at 9:11, and then mile 12 I came back with 8:42, 8:38 for mile 13, 8:42 for mile 14, and then again at mile 15 I went over the marathon pace at 9:01. Mile 16 was 8:50. Mile 17, I guess this is where I kind of blew up, 9:58, mile 17. I also remember specifically like around this area, like mile 17 to 20-ish, I believe is where you kind of run around Cal State Long Beach. I didn't really recognize a whole lot of the hills, or maybe I wasn't hurting that badly when I was running some of the other more gradual hills in the course, but I think the worst hill was probably at Cal State Long Beach, where you're running kind of like, it's like a long uphill, and then you run kind of around the campus, and then you'll run downhill for a bit. And that was probably the worst hill of the course. I also thought that there was going to be a worse hill or just like a equally as bad hill at the finish, but the finish to my surprise actually felt a little bit downhill, which was kind of nice. But maybe miles like 24 through 25 and stuff, like it was a very slightly gradual uphill, but by that time, spoiler alert, I was already kind of like walking slash running, so I didn't really feel it too bad. So yeah, back to Cal State Long Beach, was in a whole lot of pain. I was really sad, honestly, because I kind of saw like my average pace on my watch go down from like 8:46. It was like at 8:46 for the first like 15 miles, and I was kind of like, okay, like I got some time, like that. If I need to walk or I need to stretch and stuff, I would like walk or stretch. And I was still making on time for maybe a 3:50, 3:55 marathon. But as I kind of blew up around Cal State Long Beach, and as I was kind of going up the hill, also actually after Cal State Long Beach, there's another hill that's like maybe around mile 21. I remember vividly that was really long. It wasn't super steep, but it was a really long hill. So that was also really painful. But also by that point, I was already kind of walking slash running and jogging. And it was just a tough scene. I literally felt like my quads and my hamstrings were kind of like those ribs, like it was like fall off the bone type, like my muscles felt like they were gonna like drip off of my bones, so it was not a good feeling. And yeah, to kind of give you guys an idea of the paces I was hitting, so at mile 18 I was at 8:50 again, so I sped up a little bit. Mile 19, 9:18, and mile 20 through 26, that's when I was all above 10 minutes. So 11:47, 11:41, 10:29, 11:40, 11:40, 11:28, 11:29, and then the last kind of like half mile for the 26.5 or 26.4 miles, I ran at a pace of 11:56, giving my total or marathon chip time at 4:13, which I was really sad about. I honestly, like, after I started cramping at mile 7, I kind of knew, like, oh, like, maybe deep down, I was like, I think this race is low key over. I don't know if I can really fight through cramps that well, like, especially if you can't even run, if like both hamstrings or both quads or like all of those muscles are cramping at the same time. Like, as much as I want to push or as much as I try to run, like, I literally cannot. So, I was just happy, that I finished a little bit, but obviously in the moment I was very sad. I felt like I was like thinking, why is this happening to me? Like I trained the most I've trained for any marathon, and it felt like I didn't even train. It felt like my legs were weak. It felt like I was cramping everywhere, and I did everything that I did to prepare for, Long Beach. And yeah, sometimes I guess it just doesn't work out. And I would say, like, for those of you guys thinking about running Long Beach, it does start to get hot around like, maybe I don't know. Obviously, it depends on your pace, but I think around like mile 20, it started to get really hot as well. So it started getting to like 70 to 75 degrees maybe, and the sun came out a lot. Something also to note for marathoners is that the half marathoners kind of join you, I believe, at around mile 24. And then the crowds are allowed to kind of get close to the race or to the course. And I feel like that part, if you're trying to run fast, and half marathoners are going at a different pace than you are, it's a little bit hectic because, you're trying to weave throughout and stuff. I didn't have that problem because I was basically walking slash running. So I was maybe contributing to the problem. But yeah, like if you're running fast, I could see that as kind of an issue because it does get very narrow, and then you might have to weave in and out. People maybe are stopping every now and then because of cramps or whatnot, maybe me. But I try to pull to the side when that happens. But yeah, it was definitely difficult, and I'm obviously bummed about my performance. And yeah, like I was thinking like how I think of on every marathon around like mile 24, 25. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. Like, I don't know why I like to do marathons and whatnot, but that feeling kind of went away maybe like 4 or 5 hours after the race. And I was kind of like, okay, like, it's okay. Like, you can feel sorry for yourself, whatever. But I think definitely need to pick things back up and sign up for another. And I think the thing that I learned is that, or the thing that I'm going to try next is definitely weight training and just maybe doing more compound movements and just weightlifting in general to kind of strengthen my legs, quads, hamstrings, calves. Because it's just not a good feeling when you put in that much work and you put in the mileage and stuff, and you don't get the result that you wanted. Also, maybe for fueling too, I might have to switch things up. I kind of did a lot of carbs. I mean, obviously, I was trying to carb load before the marathon, but maybe since I don't typically eat a whole lot of carbs throughout my training, maybe that messed my body up. I have no idea, but I'm also open to any suggestions that you guys have in the comment section down below. So there's that. But yeah, I'm gonna figure out which marathon I want to run next. But overall, unfortunately, I took the L for Long Beach Marathon. Still happy that I finished. Congratulations to everyone else who did finish the Long Beach Marathon or half marathon or whatever race that you guys raced. And yeah, I will catch you guys in the next video. Sorry if this is a little bit of a sad video, but also let me know in the comment section down below if you have any questions about the Long Beach Marathon or the course or whatnot. I know I did maybe cover everything, but I didn't want to make this video absurdly long, so there's that. And yeah, thank you guys so much for the support. I'm not going to give up, even though in the moment I was kind of like, I'm never doing this again. But you know how that goes as marathon runners. You're going to want to sign up for another marathon. And all right, sorry about that. My camera just died. But yeah, what I was saying is I will figure out which marathon I'm going to run next. And I will let you guys know what I'm running. And obviously the goal is still to PR and break sub 4 hours. It's weird because I feel like with every other distance, I mean, besides ultra marathons and stuff, I've only done one ultra and that was unofficial. I feel like my body is fine. And obviously the marathon distance is kind of an interesting distance too. Like you're really testing the limits of your body and whatnot. But it's just frustrating that, I've ran a couple marathons and whatnot, and I still haven't really found out what is the best way to avoid cramps. And I feel like my lungs, as well as just my body, I feel like I can do it, but then when it comes to it, like, something always goes wrong. So I'm still trying to figure it out, trying to have a good attitude about it. I've been running a little bit over 2 years now, so I know I'm still early in the running journey. I know that this is like a long-term game, and you kind of have to figure out how your body works, and you have to put in the mileage and the work too, in order to kind of get what you want and stuff. And not every race is going to be good. So yeah, I'm just trying to keep a positive mindset. I'm going to give myself a little bit of a break. Like, I don't want to hop into another marathon training block immediately. I'm still going to go run and still like keep my aerobic base and fitness decently up. But I kind of want to give myself, maybe 1 or 2 months of a break before I go into the next marathon training block, just for my sanity, just to kind of enjoy running again, review some shoes and whatnot. So yeah, that's going to pretty much wrap up the video. Thank you guys so much again for your support. And unfortunately didn't get the job done, but I'm going to try again eventually. And I think that's all that matters. So yeah, long-term game. So thank you guys so much for the support. I really appreciate it. And I will catch you guys in the next video.